Thanks for joining us here at Surviving Dystopia. Our shows are dedicated to helping you prepare to thrive during uncertain times.
Welcome to the Prepper Overload Seminar. I'm DJ Cooper, and I will be sharing some tidbits of information for you today. This is the first of one of our podcasts that are available in the new video format, and I'm pretty excited to have this one be out there. The Prepper Overload is a seminar that I have given at many preparedness expos and gatherings to help many new preppers, but also old time preppers with some of the things that seem to take a precedence today, some of the things that seem to jump into the front of your mind, the ways that these things can be overwhelming and it can overload your senses, and it can also actually inhibit your preparedness efforts. Since this is like the first of them, please bear with me if I get a little lost at times. This is one of the very first ones that I've done this way, and I'm pretty excited about doing more. Incidentally, all of the slides that you find here today are available for download as a PDF, and I will be posting that as well on the Prepper Podcast website, which is POSHpreppers.com, or you can still use the old web address of prepperpodcast.com, and it will get you there. At any rate, moving forward, I'm DJ Cooper, and I am the author of the Dystopia series of books. I also write other books. I have a couple of new ones that have just been released and are being released. And I am also the founder of Authors of the Apocalypse. This came about due to one of our shows, The Written Apocalypse, right here on the Prepper Podcast. So I am also the owner of Angry Eagle Publishing. And as such, we have a special affinity for post-apocalyptic books. So if you'd like to check out Angry Eagle Publishing, you can find it at angryeaglepublishing.com. If you want to check out some of the authors of the apocalypse and what we do, we can be found at authorsoftheapocalypse.com. You can also listen to podcast shows on Blog Talk Radio, and they are now being hosted on our new YouTube channel. So hopefully we'll be able to get some good content in there for you and be able to share it with you. Prepper Podcast in 2018 was ranked as one of the top 5 of Prepper Podcasts. So I'm pretty excited about that, and know that if you go back and check our archives on Blog Talk Radio, that you will find that there's some very excellent information out there and available readily at your fingertips to listen to at any point in time during the day. All of our podcasts are kept in an archive, and you can go back and visit them anytime you'd like. So let's move forward, shall we? Let's talk about it. Get prepared. That's kind of a life's mantra for me. If you may, it has been in preparedness since birth. This has been my way of life since I could remember. My mother always helped us realize the importance of preparedness as kids and even into adulthood. And I can recall my grandmother telling me stories about things that she did growing up in the years following the Great Depression. All of this remained with me. I'd like to ask everyone to think about this. Can you think about or understand or even tell yourself, why is it that those who had so little during the Depression seemed to fare so much better during that time than those who were rich and lost all their money? That's a question that you need to ponder as we move forward in this presentation. Understanding that being prepared is something that you do over time. This is something that is not just you run out and pick up a couple of things. It is a lifestyle, and the time to start is now. There's a lot going on in the world. It's never too late to start, but the time is definitely now to start, because later might just be too late. You need to understand that life happens, disasters happens. Things like this happen and we need to learn to prepare now. Even FEMA, the government, states and counties, they are telling you to prepare. So waiting until later just may not be an option. I mean, we have seen some runs lately on things like toilet paper. And this is just not an acceptable time to be standing back and thinking, I should have prepared. Well, now you have this information. The time is now. Get prepared. So we talked about it. Why did it seem that those who had little seemed to fare better during that time when those who were rich lost their money? Something to consider about those who seemed to get by during this time is that they didn't have to reach far. To think about it, they couldn't afford fancy things or grocery store trips. When they cooked their meals at home and they ate off of their own farms. Think about it. They couldn't afford fancy things or grocery store trips. When the Depression era farm women had to start using flour sacks to make clothing for them and their families, manufacturers actually stepped up and started making their bags out of brightly colored printed fabrics just to boost sales of their flours or, oats or whatever it was that they were putting into these sacks. And that's where they ended up coming up with the flour sack dresses. They ended up adding a little flair to the common sack dress. They adapted it and they grew their own food and they preserved it. They hunted, and even the children helped in this. They helped, they worked toward it. They fixed things, they built things long before they needed them and before the Depression hit. Excuse me. They didn't have to go to the grocery store for dinner. It was in their backyard or their root cellar. They weren't standing in the lines, and they were much more prepared to weather the storm. And why were they? They were much more prepared to weather the storm because they lived it every day. You don't want to have to rely on the services that will fail in the event that the proverbial shit has hit the fan. These services will fail, and we have seen this time and time again. We have witnessed it over and over again. Natural disasters, riots, all of these things have come to pass, and every single time the people are left to do it on their own. The key is to not need the services that might fail. So SHTF. And one thing about stuff is that it happens. Sometimes it happens all at once. Suddenly, Murphy is on your doorstep. And now I want to tell you a story to possibly open your eyes. I want you to think about this because Murphy's Law has just happened. Think about your family. They're all sleeping. It's the middle of the night. Suddenly, your family is awakened from their slumber. They hear sirens, and you search your mind. What is causing it? You have no idea. You're sleeping, and there's chaos going on outside. You're hearing sirens all over the place. You don't know what's happening. Little Susie comes from her room. She's carrying her blanket and crying for mommy. The noise in the distance just became very real as the emergency vehicles raced by your own house. The ear-piercing sounds of the sirens is blaring. Your precocious 12-year-old Joey, he comes running, and he's already headed for the remote. He's going to check the news. 15-year-old Mary, she staggers into the picture, complaining her phone has no service. Joey, he yells out, "Power's out," because the TV ain't working. You're scrambling in the dark. You're cursing, I can't find my pants. And you realize the only flashlight the family owns is in the car. Haphazardly dressed and stumbling out, you see the confusion on your family's face. Sarah, your wife, looks at you over a candle. She's questioning, John, what's going on? Looking at her, you can see the unspoken fear in her eyes. You have no answers. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to tell her because you don't know what's going on. Suddenly, you're headed for the back door. You're going to go check out the situation, and you look out back, and you look back into your confused and frightened family, and you tell them all, stay inside. I'm going to go out and have a look around. Once you're outside, you notice your neighbors. They're milling around, they're talking. Confusion abounds. You turn to look at what their attention is on, and you can't believe your eyes. In the distance, the city is burning. Not only a small fire, but the whole of the once bustling metropolis is ablaze. I'm thinking of recent events where they just burned 176 or 178 buildings in Minneapolis. This is definitely a possibility. We have seen it on our own doorstep. We have seen Katrina hit and take out everything. We have seen these things happen. So to say they won't, that is the silly thing. You feel numb inside and you're barely noticing that prepper friend of yours, you know, the one where all you have to do with him is to complain about his tower that blocks your view, he's shaking you. John, did you hear me? We've been attacked. You don't know. You're just looking, you don't even know what to do. You're looking to get out of there. You want to try to figure out what's going on. You're numb inside and you just want to get back to your family. All at once, the reality of things hits you. You turn without even acknowledging your neighbor and you race to your family thinking, this will change things. You sit down and they're all looking at you expectantly. Your eyes, they dart from side to side as you process what's happening. There's little food. You have nothing stored in case of emergency. And the damn flashlight broke last week when you got that flat tire. Disaster has struck and you have no idea how you will take care of this family. What will happen? How will you survive? Suddenly, reality has hit. You don't know what to do because you have not prepared. How can you take care of your family? All of a sudden, you wake up, sweat, soaked in a panic. You're just sweating. You look around, you look at the clock, and you see it. It's sitting on the nightstand, and the numbers look like a beacon in the night. You sigh. It was all a dream. You sit on the edge of your bed, the visceral dream replaying in your mind, and you realize that you are unprepared and you need to take action. You wonder what could cause these things. How could we not know that something like this could happen? And one day, it all becomes clear. You're sitting on the edge of the bed, the visceral dream replaying in your mind, and you realize just how unprepared you are. You've decided you need to take steps, you need to get prepared. But what do? You've realized that things could go very wrong, and you are unprepared. Many will say, just start stocking up on food and water. Yes, by all means do so. But it all gets so overwhelming. How much? What else do I need? What about heat, protection, cooking? Are we even safe here? If you're anywhere near a city right now, are you safe? Welcome to the world of prepping. What's next? You've decided you need to take steps to get prepared. But what do? The questions begin to pile up, and poof, You are suddenly overwhelmed with the logistics. Do I stock up on food and water? How much food and water? Should I get some guns and ammo? What kind of guns or ammo? How about if I grow a garden? But what do you grow? Do you even know how? I know, I'll build a bug out bag. What the hell is a bug out bag? Where would I go if the shit hit the fan? What exactly does SHTF mean? The key here is to think about it. Should I take some classes? Which classes? See how overwhelmed you can quickly become. You start to think about it. Where do you go from here? You've figured out that you need to take these steps to get prepared, but you don't know where to begin. You are lost and confused. You are unsure of where or what to start with. The questions alone that you just saw have you overwhelmed. You know that you need a plan. That is the very first thing. You start with step 1, move on to step 2. The who, the what, the when. All of these things are imperative. You need to figure out who you're preparing for, what you need to do to prepare, and when you need to have it prepared by. So let's begin with, why do we prep? Let's just start right at the very beginning. You need to ask yourself, what are you prepping for and why? Is it a flood? A nuclear war? Why do we prep? This makes a difference in the things that you might prepare. But more than that, if you don't know what you're preparing for, how do you prepare for it? Let's think about this for a minute. Do y'all have any thoughts on why you need to know what you're wanting to prepare for? Obviously, it all has to do with, why do we prepare? All the examples are of specific needs for scenarios, and there are so many. There are world-ending comet. There's an alien invasion, zombies. Yellowstone might pop off. We might be subject to nuclear war. We've already seen how a pandemic can affect us. What about chemical or biological warfare? Who's to say this isn't biological warfare? How about an EMP or a CME? A financial collapse? We're now staring at civil unrest. How about Big Brother? We all love a good dystopian story. How about tornadoes and hurricanes, ice snows, storms, job loss, injury? How about simple as a stubbed toe and now you can't go to work? The reasons are many, and each has its own needs. So let's start by defining the event. These are the things that you want to think about. First thing that you want to do is to look at the events that you think are possible, right? Maybe if you look at the chart, you will see all kinds of events. But the one thing that they all have in common is they need a basic level of preparedness. All in here, the level of the needs, all of this, they all need the same thing, a very basic level of preparedness. It isn't until you start reaching other things, chemical, biological, you need maybe some additional stuff. You might need some additional preparedness items for nuclear weapon, for an EMP. How about for a pandemic? You might need some masks and stuff, right? You think about it with the level of preparedness, and you start to see that the one thing that you want to do is look to your basic needs first. Food. Your dear Sarah has begun to buy food, and you have scoured every inch of the internet for what to do and how. Now you come to the next realization, and you now have information overload, and you are completely lost. in all of the information that is out. And believe you me, I got gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs of information. And it is very easy to become lost in it. Suddenly, it is not so simple. You're trying to decipher the needs of each. And it has all just become a logistical nightmare, and you are completely overwhelmed, not only by the sheer size of the task, but all the things to consider, the questions you have, they all pile up. Now is the time. Slow down. Take a breather. Think about what you want to accomplish and start identifying the basic things. How do we determine this? Well, the first thing you're going to do is to reel in your fears for the worst, and you're going to start writing. Have a good backup of extra food, water, light, heat, and general needs. This is a good place to begin. Basic preparedness, and it's just frankly a good idea. But now that you know what it is you prepare for, you've identified what it is you see as threats for your family, and you can now act on it. It's time to write an outline. You've decided where you wish to be in terms of duration, and you want to be prepared to whether a few basic needs must be considered. So here's a thought. Think in terms of timetables, time periods, the time it takes you to get home from work. 3 days? How about weeks, months, even years? Key is to start small. Pick the shortest time first. Start simple at first. Add more time to your plans as you progress. These things all will make a difference. So when you start thinking about starting small in the shortest time period first, and you want to start at first simple and add more time as you progress, think about one day. You need to prepare for one day. If you are preparing for one day, that one day may include a get-home bag or an everyday carry bag. For women, this is easy. We just shove it all in our purse. Men, perhaps you have a briefcase or a small backpack that you carry. Um, you want to start small. Think about things, enough food to get home from where you work, only long enough to get you home, and all of the simple things. Food, water, perhaps maybe a life straw, a simple means to purify water in case you run out. Um, Maybe some paracord. People wear a paracord bracelet. This will help you if you needed to build a shelter. If you were, say, 50 miles, you work 50 miles from home, and it took you more than a day to get there. Perhaps it might take you a couple of days. This is where, if you know you work far from home, you may want to think about the week. You may want to think about a get-home pack that stays in your trunk. This one here may have things like fire starters. It might have longer term food storage. It could have perhaps a couple of snares in case you had to hunt, um, a bigger water purification method. And then you can add more time as you progress. These things might be things you do at home, things to keep you safe and well fed for a month. These are all things that you need to take into consideration when you start thinking about writing down your outline. Your timetable has got to be your first consideration, because it's the easiest thing to do is to start simple. Start with a day. There are other considerations. That consideration is location. Perhaps you're at work and you need to get home from work. Do you have some preps in your desk drawer if you work, or in your work truck, or places that you may be, especially if you will work far from home, because the goal would be to get home, correct? But if you're at home and you have a decent amount of preps there that can get you by. What if it's a situation like the riots we've been seeing and you can't get home or you can't stay at home? Perhaps you need to go to your bug out location. This here is another thing to consider. Do you have a bug out location? Incidentally, that's what BOL stands for, is bug out location. We will hear these terms. I also have another one coming up moving forward from this time where I talk about some of these terms and the acronyms used in the preparedness world. So hang in there. If you don't understand all of these, feel free to email me. I can be emailed at info@poshpreppers.com and ask me any questions that you would like, and I would be happy to answer them. So we may also have another location that we have to think about. All of these things, all of these locations are things that we need to think about in our preparedness plan. But remember to start small. Start with work and home, and then work towards the other. So what do you consider when you think about location? Some of the things you want to think about is, what is the location? What is the layout of the location? Where is the location that you're considering? Is it in the woods? Is it in an urban area? Are you in, your mother's house, which is, perhaps in a subdivision? Um, and if you must leave your home, ideally, home would be the place that you want all your stuff. But if you must leave, do you have a bug out location and a bug out bag, a means to get there? So, what are we considering? Let's go over it all. Let's start with these things and you'll feel better prepared almost immediately. Getting your thoughts organized is possibly one of the most important things that you can do. Creating an outline and stop the running in circles will give you direction and focus. Begin with what? What do I prep for? Then go to when. What is the amount of time that I am going to prepare for? And then think about where, the location you might find yourself in that you wish to be. So what are you preparing for? That might be any events. You want to know what's coming. When? The time period. Those time periods I talked about a few slides ago. And then where? It's going to be the locations, the places that you plan to be at. Because remember, anything can happen, anytime, anywhere. All of these things can affect you. When we think about some things, just think about this. Your timing is crucial. It could be a storm. Think about Katrina. It could be a meltdown. It's not like it hasn't happened. Think about Chernobyl or Fukushima. All of these things happen. A stock market crash, just a financial collapse would put us into something that resembled the Great Depression. Suddenly, a loaf of bread is a day's wages. It could be a catastrophic thing like Yellowstone, or even a comet or something like that. I mean, who knows? One never knows. The one thing that you do need to keep in mind, though, is that your outline is personal. You want to compartmentalize these things and decide if you're preparing to stay at home or if you're at work, or how will you get home. You will then break this down further into your timeline, into a full outline. You're starting with one day. You're where? Are you home or away? Think about what? Your supplies, your location, your get home bag. How are you going to do it? The contents of your bag. These might include your food list, your med list, resources, security. This is how you will structure your outline. You will have one day. You're at work, maybe you're away somewhere, maybe you're home. You will have what supplies you need, your locations will be outlined here. Do you need a get home bag if you are not at home? All of these things are important to understand and keep in mind. This is where you begin to experience information overload. This is where the list and the task becomes daunting. Suddenly you're staring around at things and you have no idea. I have just thrown a dozen acronyms out there for you and you don't even know what they mean, let alone what you're supposed to do with it. So now it's time to take into account information types. There is a multitude of information out there, and with the internet, it's even more prolific than it ever was. So let's take a look at this with this simple graphic. There are four kinds of information. There's useful information, there's useless information, there's positive information, and there is negative information. Examples of useless and negative information might be world news, stuff we can't do anything about. This is useless information, and it is also negative because it brings us bad feelings. It makes us angry. It makes us not feel good about the day. We could watch useless and positive information. Think about the viral videos on Facebook and YouTube. I am forever stuck on TikTok. That thing is a black hole and it will suck you in and it makes you smile and laugh and it's cute and funny as people do dances or you watch cat videos. I don't know, anybody watch Simon's Cat? That's the funniest doggone cat videos that I've ever seen. They're funny and they're positive. They make you feel good, but they are useless. They are a complete waste of your time and you are getting nowhere fast. There is also useful and negative information. We do need some negative information. Negative feedback, news about things that you can do something about, news about things going on in your community. A flood is coming, extra rains, they're expecting it to go above floodwaters. There's an older lady in your neighborhood and you need to help her. This is useful but negative information. Then you can find useful and positive information. So when we're talking about information overload and the information types, think about these different types of information. The useful and positive informations are books, podcasts like these, learning, even diet and exercise. These are useful and have a positive effect on your life. So now let's think about how much of these do you want to get in your life? As for the negative and useless information, people spend far too much time watching the news, scrolling Facebook, and looking at all the negative things that are out there. You want to limit this to a much smaller section of your time. It doesn't warrant that much time. There's nothing you can do about it. The same thing for positive and useless information. They're funny, they make you laugh, and they do have a place in your life, just like world news does. You do need to stay abreast of it, but you don't need to spend an inordinate amount of time on it. Now let's think about the useful and negative information. This is some stuff you need to know about. You need to be able to act if something is going on in your neighborhood or something you can do something about, like going and voting for one. It's important to understand the useful and negative information and its impact on you and how you need to assimilate it. And then you have the useful and positive information, educational things, diet, exercise, doing things that enhance and help your life. These are the things that you need to spend a larger amount of time on. So when you start thinking about the things that you are doing in your life, maybe you could remember this graphic. And there's one key point to all of this, and that is the key is learning what to ignore. It's important that you learn to ignore things that are not going to be useful. If you notice down here, you will see the useless and you will see the useful, and you will see that proportionately the useless information is a lot less than the useful information. So just try to remember in your everyday learnings and the things that you're doing and all of that, if it is useless, give it less of your attention. Learn what to ignore. At this point, you're saying, come on already, tell us how to organize it. All right, I'm going to do that. Here you go. You're going to organize it by time. Getting home perhaps might be the first of it, and maybe the first week. You're going to organize it by the event. Events will be different for different people. People in the Midwest may be more worried about a tornado, whereas people in the South, East, say Florida, Gulf Coast might be worried about a hurricane. There is always, with any storm, the chance of a power outage. And then you will think about what you need, taking one step at a time. Do you need get home bag or do you need supplies to last you a week? The key is breaking down the key points. Understanding these key points and breaking them down into their own separate areas is the important thing that you need to know. Create an outline. Real quick, like, we're going to go through this outline. It doesn't need to take forever because you can download and you can hang on to this. You can freeze the frame in the video if you want to write it down yourself. Whatever you need to do to help you to better understand what you need. Now, I mention specific products in this. Please do not take them as an endorsement of these products. While I do find that they are good products and I will personally use them, I'm not necessarily telling you that you have to. So let's create our outline. Let's start with number one, the get home bag. In the get home bag, you may want water, bottled water, maybe grab a Sparky Sport bottle. I got one of those as a gift at one of the events that I went to. Wonderful, wonderful thing. But you could also just get purification tablets. They have these at Walmart, people. They're like $2. Think about it. Perhaps a pocket knife, some food, some matches, a flashlight. The list goes on, and it is very specific to you and your needs and what it is that you may want to have in your bug out bag, your get home bag. This is the bag that is going to get you from work to home. So it needs to have at least some of the things that you would need to survive. And I would say to make sure you have enough to get you through 2 to 3 days. And the reason I say this is you may not be able to make it home right away. What if there are floodwaters in the way and you can't get across? There are many numbers of reasons why you may not get home right away. So make sure this gives you a couple of days. And if you would like some more information on the bug out bag, try this website out. I adored it and I really did get some really great ideas from it. So I wanted to make sure to give the bugoutbagguide.com a shout out and go check out their list because it's much more expensive than this one. So as we continue to move forward in our outline, we have already seen the get home bag. Now let's take a look at the bug out bag. Yeah, that's not a good example. Let's move over to the list. In your bug out bag or bob, you want to have a tent or even just a tarp. You need a way and a means to create shelter. Again, you need water purification, just like we outlined in the get home bag. You will need extra clothes, socks, warm jacket, hiking boots, things that you're going to need to get yourself to the location that you have predetermined to be the place that you're going to bug out to. You would need a mess kit, and don't forget the ever needed toilet paper and first aid kit. The most important thought is to keep it manageable. Nobody's carrying that size of a bug out bag. Again, make sure you check out the bugoutbagguide.com and it will give you more information on your bug out bag. So now we're going to the more of the things on your outline. There's a key adage that says store what you eat and eat what you store. There is absolutely zero reason to store eggplant if you and none of your family plan to eat it. Somebody says it's great for storage purposes. It may be great for storage purposes, but you're going to starve to death if your kids won't eat it. So just don't. So let's talk about food. Maybe you are going to store prepackaged food, and that is great. But if you're not, you're going to need some things. You're going to need canning supplies, supplies for drying and storing it. How about getting some skills to hunt and butcher, growing some garden? You'll need seeds and tools. What about learning about the wild plants in your area? There's always mushrooms and herbs and all kinds of stuff. You could grow an herb garden. There are so many ways that you can handle your food situation, but not the least of them is getting stored up already prepackaged and canned food. Try to get things that don't require a lot of work to prepare them. Think about this. You can go into the store and they have small little packets of the tuna. Drop those right into your bug out bag or your get home bag, but they're great at home too. Single serving, say you caught a fish and your kid's not going to eat it because they never ate fish caught out of the stream before. Give them a pack of that tuna, they're happy as a clam. So also need to keep in mind in your food storage is that you need to understand that while a snake is a great thing to eat, your kid might not eat it. And this is very possibly something that could be a problem. So let's move forward in creating the outline because there are a couple of pages to this outline. Let's think about water. We've talked about some ways to purify water, and this is all well and fine for your bug out bag and for your get home bag. But when you are talking about an at home situation where you are going to need a lot of water for people, you need to think about storing the water, gathering water, rainwater, surface water, creeks and lakes. If you are gathering water other than water you just stored, but there are specific ways to store water. It will grow algae if you don't. I remember I have a little water filter that I use. It's just a Brita kind. It's nothing great. I just don't like the flavor of the water. So I will use this for everyday drinking. And I didn't pay attention to the inside. As a matter of fact, when I first bought it, I didn't realize that it even opened. I was just going to buy a new one. I realized that there was green algae growing in the bottom of my water. This water is treated. It's treated with bleach. You can smell it. That's why I filter it. But the algae will still grow. So when you are talking about water storage, you need to think about all of these things. Now we're going to go to creating the outline for your shelter. You need to think about your home. If you are traveling, you may need a tent, tarps. What is your bug out location? All of these things. Shelter is one of the important things. Food, water, shelter. These are all things that you need to sustain your life. You cannot exist in a snowstorm without shelter. Let's create more outlines. Let's talk about heat and light. Perhaps you're planning on fire or some other form of heat. You're going to want to think about this because what if the power's out and your furnace suddenly doesn't want to work? Do you have a backup generator? Do you have batteries for flashlights? Do you have a lantern? Do you have any other way to create these things? So keep in mind the next of the topics that you're going to want to research and look into. And remember, start small, short period of time. Work your way up to a bigger. I know things seem overwhelming, but even a flashlight in a dark room will help you to see. You don't necessarily need a generator right out of the gate. So start small, short periods of time, move forward. The next segment in creating your outline is going to talk about your medical. There's a possibility that somebody could get hurt or get sick, and you want to know how to take care of these things. But there are some basic things. Start small, short periods of time. It's like, it reminds me of the movie, The Patriot. Aim small, miss small. Start small, then get bigger. If you start small, you're hitting the things that are most likely to be a problem for you. Medical, over the counter, pain reliever, cold medicine, allergy medicines. How about anti-diarrhea medicines? Or how about things for if you get constipated? Because there's nothing worse in a SHTF situation, because I'm not going to use that word in this situation, than not being able to do it. Think about the fact that you may need prescriptions. You need to get a list of your prescriptions together and possibly see if your doctor will give you an extra prescription that you can fill and keep on hand. Always taking your new prescription, putting it in the back, and using your spare as your current month. This way here, your backup month is always fresh. How about some first aid supplies? And get a little bit of training. Oftentimes, it's not expensive or even free. Check the Red Cross. And also consider herbal alternatives. So many things are wonderful for mood, say lavender. Perhaps if you can't breathe because you have asthma, you could think about, peppermint or um, eucalyptus is good, but also there's so many of them. It figures that now that it's not sitting right in front of me, I can't think about it. But having on hand some alternatives, some herbal alternatives, is always a great idea. And learning about the things that affect you and the ways that these herbs can help you. Let's continue to create our outline with our library. Having information, as our podcast opening says, knowledge is power. Understanding this will help you in creating a library that will give you the power of this knowledge. Be selective in creating your library, because nobody wants like a whole house full of stuff, because then all of a sudden you're a hoarder and it all goes downhill from there. Some of the ones I recommend is the SAS Survival Guide. This one is great to stick in your bug out bag, and a first aid book, because your bug out bag is nearly always with you wherever you go. This can be gotten. Put it in a side pocket of your bug out bag, so if you need it, even if you're at home, it's readily available. But when you take to go, you have it with you. The Foxfire books, I can't say enough about them, and they're becoming more and more available. They are a little hard to find, but they're wonderful examples of the old way of doing things. Get your hands on some canning books if you plan to preserve food, but be selective, as I said, in creating your library. This is not a full list, but an example of how to get organized. I want to give a shout out to some friends, and you will be hearing from one of them, Nick. Um, he created the mind map. So I'm going to give you information on how to get a hold of him somewhere in our website. So please head over to poshpreppers.com, or you can still use the old web address prepperpodcast.com to get your hands on some of these things. He offers them already made for you. This is an amazing tool, and he gave me a set, and I cannot even tell you how absolutely amazing this tool is. But remember to use tools to help you organize. And the one last thing to remember is one step at a time. Start small, short time periods. You are your most valuable preparedness resource. Remember to prepare yourself, prepare your mind, and knowledge is power. If you would like to get a hold of me, you can contact me at authoroftheapocalypse.com, or you can find me hanging around at angryeaglepublishing.com. And don't forget to check out the other shows and resources at prepperpodcast.com or poshpreppers.com. Stick around. Come back for some more episodes of Surviving Dystopia. I'm looking forward to putting together more of these little shows for you. And I do have some products that I am going to do some videos of and showcase. And if anybody has products that they would like me to review and show people how they're used, or even let's see how easily usable they are, let me give them a shot. You can find out how to get those to me if you just email me at info@poshpreppers.com, info@poshpreppers.com. Incidentally, does anybody know about the rebranding and why we call it poshpreppers.com? We call it POSH Preppers because the POSH, or POSH, stands for preparedness, outdoor skills, survival, and homesteading. We like to promote all of these things as part of the total preparedness plan. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to check out the website to find your copy of the PDF download for all of these slides and the things that accompany it.